Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Renee, and I welcome you to the library this afternoon. I would also like to extend a welcome to those of our viewers who are watching via live stream. If you would, please take a moment to share your thoughts on our programming using the feedback forms on the back table. Your feedback helps us plan for future events. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, JoBeth Evans. JoBeth is a certified grief recovery specialist. She is a mother of two whose husband died of brain cancer. She speaks not only from her education and training, but also from her personal experience. JoBeth, thank you for being here.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank you guys for coming today. I'm always really excited when people show up to move forward in their grief journeys. I've been working with people for over a year now, and I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is by not taking any step forward. And so I'm thankful that you guys are here, and I'm super just grateful for you and your experience that's led you here. So I, just like you, have had an experience or two in life that have got me to this position. And I started out my life in a very positive way. Things were really lovely, had the whole fairy tale of got married, was gonna have kids and have the house and all the things in life. And shortly after my husband and I got married, we realized that we couldn't have kids. And so that was my first big experience with grief, which was an experience of not getting to experience something that I had dreamed of. And so after that, we decided that we would adopt from foster care, and that was a really lovely, awesome experience. And then just 5 years after adopting our kids, my husband was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And ultimately, that was the experience that got me here, was found myself in a situation where I was sitting at my kitchen table in this home that my husband had built, and I was wondering, like, can I get through this? Like, is this something that I can figure out? At the time, we had a farm and a construction company, and I had a job, and we homeschooled our kids, and I told myself in that moment, like, if I can figure out how to get through this situation, then I'm gonna help as many people as I can do the same. And so, as you know, I made it out alive, and I'm here today. And I say I made it out alive because there were several months that passed where I didn't want to be here anymore. And I wasn't having suicidal thoughts, but I didn't see a point in being here anymore. When we lose somebody that's really close to us, I've found that it is normal to lose a desire to be here. And so I want to walk with you today for just a little bit through a part of your life that is really precious and tender and hurtful, and do the best I can to get you on a path after today to point you in the right direction. And we have an hour. You guys all know the situation you're in, and you probably know that an hour is not going to change your whole outlook on life and how you move forward, but I want to at least give you steps to do that. So I'm not an expert in grief. As you guys have each figured out, like, just like our fingerprints are super specific and unique to us, grief is very specific. So I can tell you, what the textbook says about how we should handle grief and how I handled grief, but ultimately today, I want to give you some really good information, and then I want you to reflect on how this is going to look in your life, because you are really the only person that knows. So I want today to be very reflective, and I want you to, as everything I say, ask yourself how this applies to you. So the first question today is, what brought you here, and what grief or loss feels most present? So as I've been working through grief, I've realized that there are big things that happen. Like, there was my infertility experience, and then there was the death of my husband that were major, major losses. But what we do in this line of work is we look back and we realize that, like, there's a big loss that probably brought you here today, and there's probably about 8 or 10 other losses. By my age, you've had 8 or 10 major losses. And so I want you to ask yourself, which one brought you here today. And if you can write stuff down as we talk, it's really helpful. Writing is very therapeutic. I tell my story a lot. You guys can, I recently got remarried. My name's JoBeth Pauley now. But I recently got asked to contribute to a book. And I tell my story all the time on podcasts. If you guys follow me on Facebook, you can listen to some of those podcasts. And I tell it all the time, but when I started writing about what had actually happened in my life, it was different. It was a different experience. So I want to encourage you guys to write as we're doing this, and maybe if you can, write down what loss brought you here today. So like I mentioned, there's a lot of losses that we experience in life, and a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say oh, well, you lost your husband and I just lost my job. So those things are, yours is way worse than mine. But really, these all stack up and they add up and they get really heavy on us. So we like to use the analogy of having a backpack on. So something little happens. Maybe your pet dies when you're little. So you toss that little stone in your backpack, and then maybe your parents get divorced and that was really painful. So you put that in, and then you just add and add and add your whole life, and then your husband dies. And it's like this big boulder that's put in your backpack, and your straps break, and you don't know what to do with it anymore. All the strategies that you've used up until this point, they don't work anymore. And so you have to do something different. So I like to always look at what are the losses that we have experienced that have added and contributed to the story of loss in our own lives. So some people don't recognize how grief affects our physical bodies. And so, it might be oh, I have a cold, or oh, this happened or that happened. And you may think that you're handling your situation really well, but your body knows different. And so some of these things, I think depression is pretty obvious. When I lost my desire to live, that was clearly depression. And you can't deny that. But a lot of illnesses, if you're having stomach issues, or you have a cough that won't go away, you've lost your energy, you get angry really easily, so you snap at people, and you didn't used to do that before, overreacting, isolating. These are things that we can look at and be okay, maybe it is having a physical toll on my body that I didn't have before this happened. So I want you guys to reflect for just a second and ask yourselves, is there something with you that's happening with your health that you are experiencing because of grief? And this is just bringing awareness to your body and yourself about what grief is doing to you, okay? So are you experiencing anything? For me, I had a cough that wouldn't go away. I also started having a rash, and it had a name. If I went to the doctor, it would have had a name, but it was grief is what was causing it. And so I want you guys to, like I said, keep reflecting back on what this is for you. My experience is an example. This is about you today. Lies that we're told about grief can be detrimental to our healing process. And I think a lot of times, we live in the South, and it's kind of you just toughen up and you get through stuff. You stay busy. That's one that was told to me, and I come from a long line of really hardworking people, and I was advised to just stay busy, keep working. Just if you stay busy, you're going to be okay. And what I found is that I would be okay while I was busy, but then as soon as I laid down at night, or as soon as I got in my car and it was just me, all of it came crashing down again. And it was a real myth buster for me to realize that I can stay busy for years and this isn't going anywhere. You guys lost somebody or something that was really important to you. Staying busy is not going to change that for you. And also, I want to interject right here and say, as grievers, you can get really easily overwhelmed. Things that you used to just be able to blow through and be able to listen and focus and everything, that's not the case anymore. And so I wanted to say, this is all being recorded. So if at any point during this, you're I need to check out for a second and not listen because it's getting to be too much for me, you can do that. If you feel at any point like you just need to leave because it's too heavy, you can do that. Like, I'm not offended, it's okay, it's all gonna be on the library's Facebook page. And the last thing I wanna do is overwhelm anybody. So staying busy doesn't work. And I obviously want you guys thinking about which one of these you have done. Time heals. A lot of people will tell you that things get easier after the first year. They don't get easier. And that's shocking, because you think like, time will pass. And just like with staying busy, like, yeah, time has passed. This person or this thing that you loved is not here. And time doesn't change that at all. And so I meet with women sometimes that are 5 years down the road, and they will tell me that it felt like yesterday that they experienced this loss. And I don't want that for anybody. And the way that time can heal is if you're actively working towards getting better and healing. That's why you're here today, is to get some tools to help you with that. I always think it's like, it could be just one of the saddest things to just bury your head in the sand for a year and then wake up a year later to realize that everything is still there and still very relevant in your life. And a lot of people are going to say, it's time for you to move on. It's time to just, get over it. Like, you got to move on with your life. And it sounds like a really great idea if you could just be like, okay, that's over, I'm just going to move on now. But that doesn't work either. And so if people have told you that in your family, I know that as grievers, it almost feels like you're given maybe a year to get it together. And then it's like after the year, people are like, okay, it's been a year. You need to get back to doing all the normal things. You need to get back to work. You need to get back to playing with your grandkids. You need to get back to doing all these things. And there's no timeline, and you know that. And it can be really hurtful by those people. And so I do want to validate you and your feelings that there isn't a timeline. And at the time, if there was, it isn't a year, because, again, you lost something really, really important to you. So I want you guys to think about the myths you've believed. So things people have told you, or that maybe you've just told yourself. Again, for me, staying busy or work more was something that was really pushed. I remember at Christmas, the Christmas after my husband passed, I have 2 kids. At the time, they were 13 and 7, and I was about to lose my mind. They both had basketball, they both had Christmas parties, they each had all these things, and then as a family, I think we had 6 Christmases that we had to go to together. It was just it was bizarre, the amount of things. My mom calls me one day and she was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I'm about to lose my mind because I'm running in 1,000 different directions." And her response was, "Well, that makes me feel better to know that you're busy." And I was just like, no, I'm about to freak out. I've about had enough. I can't take it anymore, because all of that busyness stacked on top of a broken heart is a recipe for disaster. And so staying busy, bad idea. So I want you to think for just a second. Think about the lies you've believed up until this point that you have thought was going to help you. And then it's always important to replace thoughts. So this is something I've been practicing for years, but if there's a thought or something that I don't want to believe, then I change it to something that I do want to believe. And so in this situation, it's not true that staying busy is going to help me. What can I believe? Well, I can believe that I can actively work towards healing. And that is a belief that I also have. But I don't want to think this first one, because I know through research and experience that it's not true. So I don't want to believe that. And so every thought that you have, things are going to get better. Next year, things are going to be better. After I make it through this first birthday, after I make it through this first holiday, everything's going to get better. You replace that with, I know it's possible that I can heal my heart and feel better. And I want to be very honest and straightforward about this, especially if you've lost somebody recently, is that when you lose something that's that precious and that important to you, and like it could be you've got a diagnosis and you lost your health, or it could be that you've lost a child, or it could be that you lost a really important job, or you have an estranged family member that really hurts. There's always going to be pain there because you lost something that was really important to you, okay? But we always want to be actively moving towards healing and getting better, because we can, after major loss and major pain and major hurt, we can move to a place where we can show up in this world for ourselves, we can show up for other people, and we can have a positive influence. And that's what we want to get you to a place where you can feel joy and happiness again. So I talked a little bit about accumulated grief. So my daughter is 9. She was 6 when my husband passed away, and when we told her, he had brain cancer, so he was sick for a year. And so it was never a surprise that he had passed. He was in hospice for a month, and it was a very slow thing. She never really cried all that much. She never really seemed all that sad about it. That was odd to me. And then a year later, she finds this little blue jay that she rescued from the cats. It was like this big. It fell out of its nest too early, so she was going to save it, okay? Like she was going to save this blue jay. So she put it in a little closet and put feed and everything in there for it. The next morning, she goes to check on it. Guess what? It died. And she was devastated. She just held this bird, and she cried, and she cried, and she cried, and she cried, and I'm sitting there, like, with my training, I know not to be like, get over it, it was a bird. I was fighting that. I was fighting it hard. I was like, it's just a bird. You lost your dad, and this is a bird that you're really losing it over. And so I was fighting that thought, but as I got to thinking about it, I was like, this is not about the blue jay. And you guys may have had similar experiences. But as I was sitting there with her, going from being super critical of like, this was just a little bird that you gave it an extra day. Like I was trying to think of all these ways to like validate that she had done the right thing and it was, things, it was okay. But as I sat there, what I realized is a month before my husband died, her babysitter died. Then my husband died, and 6 months before that, a guy who was like a grandpa to her died. She had 3 major losses. And as I sit there with her crying over this blue jay, I started to cry, realizing that like, this probably isn't about the blue jay at all. This was just the thing that broke her straps. And so we really have to, I think there's a couple things we can take from that story. Like probably everybody in here has a connection to a child, and we have to recognize that things aren't always what they appear to be. And so we have to show up for others knowing that it may not be about the blue jay, but we need to come around, love and support and validate feelings of the people that we love, even if we don't understand it, but also that grief accumulates. And sometimes the things that break us is not, what has been the biggest contributor. And so that may be why you're really feeling a lot of pain and maybe having trouble getting over a loss. So back to our recognized losses. A lot of times when I see people that are having a really hard time moving forward after a loss, usually it's because there's several things up here that have happened throughout their life that they've never dealt with. It's just, they've just kind of tossed it in the backpack. I can carry this. I can carry it by myself. It's fine. Like, I'm sure everybody in here has said that at some point, like, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. Like, I'm carrying it. I got this. But it's people that come to me that really struggle, that have had several of these things happen, that they just haven't had the opportunity to deal with. They haven't been given the right tools. And so this thing that breaks their straps opens up all of these things that have happened in their past. So what grief have you accumulated? I'm sure you've been thinking about it for a minute now. There's also things like, it's very common that I see people who have had things happen in their childhood that they were abused in some way. Mom didn't show up the way she should have. And so they didn't deal with that. And so it's like, once we get down to like the real source of their pain, it's like, oh, if I could deal with this thing that happened when I was 5, I'd be able to handle this thing that's happening right now. Okay, so it's really important that we look at the full picture. So this is like, when I teach my course, this is one of the things people enjoy talking about the most, and one of the most embarrassing things also. So STIRBs are short-term energy relieving behaviors. And some of them are really harmless. Some of them are detrimental to you. So these are things that when things get really hard for you, you don't want to feel the feeling that you're feeling, and you want to escape that. What do? Okay, so when I'm switching off of this really nasty feeling I'm feeling, what do I switch to? Okay, I live on a farm. It could house so many animals. It's like an endless amount of animals I could buy. I bought chickens, I bought a dog, and everybody around me knew what I was doing. I was looking for these like dopamine hits with something new and fun. So it was shopping for me. The Amazon guy was at my house all the time. And so that is kind of like, oh, funny, haha, you bought animals and you bought things. Short-term effect wasn't that big a deal. If I wouldn't have shut that behavior down, it could have been, I could have experienced much more losses like bankruptcy or not being able to feed my children, stuff like that. So another one, social media. I think that's probably something that most people in the room will do. And this could even be something like you're at work and work's getting hard. And you're like, oh, I just need a break. And so you open Facebook and you just scroll, and it allows you to check out here where it's really painful and check into something that's very mindless. So it can be anything that you're doing. Here's the list, and I'll read this because I don't know that you can see it for the people who are watching on Facebook. Food, sleep, drugs, alcohol, relationships, the internet, Facebook, anger, control, daydreaming, video games, sex, porn, television, movies, books, serving others, working, shopping, gambling. And you're probably like, serving others? That doesn't sound like a bad thing. But I think a lot of times it feels really good to us, again, if we can take the attention off of us and the pain that we're feeling and put it on somebody else. So like, if I'm hurting, I just need to make sure that if my kids are happy, then that makes me feel better about what I'm avoiding. When I was going through my own grief, I would tell people, I'd be like, oh, there's no wrong way to grieve. I felt very confident in that. Because like, as we discussed in the beginning, we're all very different. We're all experiencing this. And I think I just broke the podium. Now I have a pointer. Just kidding. I'm not going to use that. I was like, that thing feels very loose. Actually, I didn't break it, guys. It was already broke. But I would say there's no wrong way to grieve, because like when I was in my grief, I was like, hey, we're just all surviving. We're all just doing the best we can. And I think part of that is true, and I think part of that is not true anymore, because I want to believe that we're all doing the best we can. But the flip side of that is there's a lot of these things up here that we can use to grieve that are not okay, and we should not be participating in. And after I worked with several people and I had people come into my groups intoxicated, I realized that we got more problems than just grief now. So it might start with a loss, but then you start being dependent on, it's a joke. I watch My 600-Pound Life. And a lot of times that's because people haven't dealt with their grief, so they turn to food. And it's a domino effect of problems after that. So at first I lost somebody, and that was a lot. Now I've lost my ability to live the life that I wanted to live. Sleep, a lot of times, people check out by sleeping. If you have people in your life that need you to be there, that's not good, not a good way to cope. And then drugs and alcohol, when you start relying on that, then addiction forms. And I will never stand on a platform anywhere and tell you that it's okay. I do believe that there is a time to medicate and to use assistance of medications to get you through time periods. When my husband got diagnosed, I was like going to just like power through, you know, and about a month later, I had a panic attack. I thought I was having a stroke. So in my mind, I'm sitting in my house and I'm like, okay, my husband's dying and I'm about to die too because I'm having a stroke. I couldn't speak. My tongue was numb. My hands were numb. I was trying to tell my husband that I was having a panic attack because I thought that's what it was. And he was trying to ask me if he needed to call an ambulance. And all I could think about in my mind was that my kids were not going to have parents because we were both dying. And it scared me really bad. And I was very anti-medication because I felt like it was a cop-out to, like, if he's going to suffer and my kids are going to suffer, I'm not going to take medicine. Like, I'm going to suffer to the fullest amount possible because that's, you know, how I'm going to do this. But after I had that panic attack, it scared me so bad, and it made me realize that even though on the outside I was handling this really well, my body was not. And so I got on a medication, and I used it through his illness and for a couple months after, like I think 6 months after, and I got off of it. But it was a tool that I needed. And I don't want anybody to think that, like, because I mean, I was pretty like ugly about it, honestly. I was like, no, I'm not going to take medication. But then I realized that I had a really big responsibility to be showing up in a certain way for my family, and it was going to be a great tool for me. That is a medication and a drug that I think can be helpful. Illegal drugs are never the answer, and I think we can all agree on that. And oftentimes when people come to me, they think they're coming to me for grief work, but sometimes we find out that rehab is actually a better option, or getting help with substance abuse issues. And obviously we know that some of these can be to our financial ruin. And so what do we do with this information? So I want you to think about how you're disturbing, and if you live with somebody, they probably know how you're disturbing as much as you do. It may not be obvious to you. They might know, but I think that everybody in this room probably has enough self-awareness to know that, like, these are the things I'm doing. Like, I feel this way, this is what I go to. And so it's like, okay, that's great, I know that now. I know that I'm disturbing and I shouldn't be, but what do I do with it? And so back before I started doing this, I worked for a celebrity addiction coach. So she went into people that were, you know, NFL rock stars, and she went and did like private recovery stuff with them. And one thing that she taught was switching behaviors. So when they were wanting to use, she would have them just get up real quick and start doing squats, just like moving up and down, up and down, up and down. Because what studies show is that when your body moves, it changes the state of your brain. And so some examples, let's say you're eating. Every time you get sad, you just want some ice cream. You just want something. You want that dopamine hit. You want some cookies. You want something. Maybe going for a walk is a little extreme. Maybe you watch a movie. Maybe instead of doing that, you just turn on a movie. Or maybe if you're used to coming home and getting on the internet, maybe you come home and you read a book instead. Just like tiny, tiny switches. And this is when we talk about moving forward and doing better and getting better, it's about these little things that we can do a little bit at a time to get better. Because like I said, grief is overwhelming. And it's exhausting, and you get overstimulated and stressed out really easy. So if you can just start doing a little thing at a time, that's what we want. So I want you to think about, like, what are some really good switches that I can make? And something else that I'm trained in is something called harm reduction, and it kind of goes along with this. So it'd be like, if you're used to drinking a case of beer every night, don't quit cold turkey. Try drinking 2 beers tonight. Taper yourself down. Don't think that you have to go make this extreme change because your body is already in a state of grief and sadness and stress. And so doing a little bit at a time is going to ensure that you're going to be more successful on the other end. Does anybody have any questions yet? I'm going to allow some time at the end to talk, for you guys to ask questions, because like we have an hour together, and like there's a lot going on with you guys, and an hour's probably not going to be super life-changing. So what do we do with all the unresolved grief? And what do we do instead of disturbing? And I think the main point is we move forward. And you have to know what moving forward is for you. I'm the kind of person that I'm extreme. I take it doesn't matter if I'm doing a fitness thing, or I'm doing education, or I'm doing training. Like I go to the extreme, which is not always healthy. But the point is that you have to do something to move forward, and you're doing that by being here today. But I do just want you to really, really think about what am I going to do tonight or tomorrow when I get home that's going to ensure that I'm not in the same place next year as I am right now. I had one of my favorite clients. She was going to join my group, and I told her, I was like, well, it's a lot of work and it's going to be really hard, and like just telling you that up front. And she was like, I'm not worried about anything being hard, and I'm not worried about working hard. She's like, what I'm worried about is being in the exact same place next year as I am right now. She said, that's my greatest fear. She had lost her son to suicide. And if there's anybody in that group here today, she went through my program, and she is looking for other people, other parents that just need somebody. So if you're looking for somebody that's been in that situation, she has. Tools to overcome. I think that the first one here may be a little bit irrelevant, because if you were in denial about the situation, you wouldn't be here. But if you have experienced loss, there's probably somebody in your life that experienced that same loss and may be in that situation. But I think it's important that we recognize that loss is really hard, and it's sad. We didn't know. We weren't taught what to do with it. And it's totally okay to feel basically whatever you're feeling. And maybe you can communicate that to those that you love. And having a different relationship with your STIRBs. So as of today, you're aware. So you can't not know now because I told you. So now when you go do these things, you know now. You at least know what they're called, and you know what you're doing. And so how can you change the relationship with them? Because I have found that these STIRBs that you have, that I have, a lot of times are the things that cause us to lose relationships, because we're so stuck on avoiding the emotions that we have that people don't want to hang out with us anymore. And I find that then, again, it's that domino effect of more losses. And a lot of you have experienced it, that after a year, people kind of expect you to get back to normal, your normal self. And one of the ways we can do that in a healthy way is becoming aware of our STIRBs, being aware of how we're handling them, and change them to something different, like we talked about. Talking with safe people, for myself, was one of the best things that I did. I hope everybody in here has a friend that's going to listen to you say the same thing over and over and over again, and act like it's the first time they heard it every time you tell them. I hope that's the case for you. But having somebody that's going to listen to you and love you and not give you advice, because the reality is nothing anybody's going to say is going to make you feel better. You just need somebody to listen to you. And so I'm a widow. It was very helpful for me to have a widow to talk to. And at this point in my journey, I'm certain that I could match each one of you with somebody that would listen to you and love you and be that listening heart for you. But it's very, very beneficial. And you'll find a lot of times if you go to therapy, it's what therapy is. So it's almost like you can get therapy for free if you can find a good friend that's just going to sit there and be like, yeah, that's really sad. I hate that you went through that. And then the next day when you call, can have that exact same response and love you through that. So in the back, there's a feelings wheel, and this is a lot, but I wanted to give you guys a lot of examples. One of the worst things we can do is stuff everything inside, because when we stuff, it doesn't go anywhere. And I don't know about you guys, but my goal when I found out my husband was dying was to expedite my grief. I told my therapist, I was like, so how do we expedite this so I don't feel like this any longer than absolutely possible? And she laughed and said, you can't. And then I laughed and said, watch me, because I'm not going to live like this. And so these things are some of the things that you can do that's going to get you through the worst days the quickest, and to ensure that when you experience bad days in the future, they're not as heavy as they are right now. And so, do I still have bad days where I cry and I'm like, why is this life? Like, why is this my life? Yeah, I do. Are they as extreme and dramatic and heavy as they were 2 years ago? No, because if you do these things, you're going to feel better. You're never going to get over your loss. You're never going to forget it, but you can feel better on a day-to-day basis. A lot of times, man, I don't want to pick on the guys in here, but anger comes out as like a primary emotion, and it's not. It's not a primary emotion, it's a secondary emotion. So you feel angry, but actually when you start digging there, you actually feel abandoned, or maybe you feel like you've been gypped in life, like you were supposed to have this experience, but this is what you got. So there's a feelings wheel in the back. Take a picture of it when you leave, but it helps you to find the feeling that you're feeling, and then you can go out from that and be like, okay, this is actually it, and pinpoint those emotions. This is really woo-woo. So for those of you that are like a little more like hardcore, like maybe grew up with like, you don't have feelings in this house type of thing, like maybe this is a little much for you. But these things are helpful, and for the sake of your recovery, like just bear with me for a minute. But saying how you feel out loud is really helpful. That's why it's helpful to have a friend. I feel really alone. I feel really isolated. It's very helpful to be able to pick up a phone or FaceTime somebody and say things that you feel or you're experiencing. For example, I had the feeling the other day, my husband's been gone 3 years, that I don't know him anymore. Like he's not somebody that I actively know. And that's really hard to kind of like explain and put words to. But when I called my friend who's a widow, and I was like, he was my husband. I don't even feel like I know him anymore. Like that's really weird to have that feeling. You need somebody that can just be like, yeah, me too. I felt that too. And does it do anything? Does it make you? No, it just validates that you're not crazy. Other people feel this way too. And saying it out loud is super helpful. Journaling is super important. Writing is therapeutic. Sometimes we write things that we don't want anybody else to read because it's too personal. And like if something happened to you and then your kids found this letter, they'd be traumatized. And so like you don't need to like write it down. Write it down and burn it. Put it in the grill and light it on fire. But it's important that you get it out, because not everything that's in here needs to come out of your mouth where people are listening. So pay attention to your body. Try to relax. You can do that through exercise, yoga, all the things. Rating how you feel, because I think a lot of times we're actually making progress, but we don't feel like it. So it's like maybe today my grief was an 8, but like yesterday it was a 10, and you can kind of like start to get an idea and some awareness about how you feel. We talked about identifying primary emotions, naming your emotions, sharing your feelings with somebody else, talking with a friend, writing letters. Writing letters to people is very healing. It's something that we practice in the group that I do. A lot of time when people have unresolved grief that won't go away, it's because we didn't say the things that we needed to say. We needed to apologize for something that we did, and that person's no longer here. You can't do that. And so writing a letter is really helpful. Bonus points if you read it out loud, and double bonus points if you can read it to somebody that'll listen to you. And so I highly recommend writing letters because it gets it off your chest. It's just kind of like they would advise, like when you lay down at night and you're like, oh, tomorrow I got to do this, 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 and this. And so you're laying awake like, oh, I can't forget to do those things. They recommend writing it down and putting it on your bedside so you don't have to worry about remembering. It's the same concept. Using creative outlets, painting, poetry, music, moving your body. For me, it was working out. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I was so exhausted. I was like maxed out in all those areas, but physically I had all this energy in my body. And so I would go to the treadmill, and my attempt was to make my body on the outside match the exhaustion of what I was feeling on the inside. And I would just run and run and run until I broke down and cried and took a shower and went to bed. But it was a release. It was an outlet for me. Cry, laugh, or sigh without judgment. An assignment from my therapist was to go somewhere, like in my car where nobody could see or hear me, and find like the saddest playlist. Like, you're thinking, like, why would you do this to yourself? Because it sounds really terrible, and it was. Turn on the saddest playlist, sit there and think about how absolutely disgusting and sad this loss was, and just cry till your face hurts, because it releases these emotions that we have in us. And I did, and it was like, this is like self-induced pain. Like, it doesn't seem like something that would be healthy. But again, when we stuff, we're just saving that stuff for later. And we don't want to save anything for later. Like, we want to deal with stuff as much as we can. Praying, meditating, talking to God, or being in stillness, and using grounding techniques. Nature is very healing. And so if you can go barefoot out into nature and just breathe, you're going to be surprised at what it does for you. Now, always recommend that, even if you're not an outdoorsy person, like, just give yourself a minute. This is weird. There was a time where I had two really contradicting emotions. My sister and I were very, very close, and we decided that we were going to have kids together. That was our plan. We were like, our husbands were friends, we were best friends, and we're gonna have kids together. She found out she was pregnant the day after I found out we would never be able to have kids. It was like, she came in my house, and she was like, it had to be like one of the hardest things for her to tell me, right? That it was happening for her. It was not gonna ever happen for me. And it was like two worlds collided and two big emotions collided. Here I was, just got told no for something that I wanted really bad, and here she is getting it. And I felt so excited because I was gonna get to be an aunt, and realizing this is the closest thing I'm gonna ever be to a mom, is getting to be an aunt, and being so, so excited about that, and feeling so crushed at the same time. And it was weird. It was a weird, weird feeling. And that leads us to all these other things, to extreme feelings that we can have at the same time, and maybe even feeling guilt for the positive ones. I remember the first time I felt joy after my husband passed, and I was like, I felt guilt, because how can I be happy when he died, right? Like, I shouldn't be able to feel good feelings. My husband died. And the reality is that we can feel those feelings, and it's okay. And if you have moments of feeling well, feeling happy, just enjoying anything, like, gosh, embrace it and hold on to it. More of those times are gonna come. And if you haven't experienced that first joy after extreme just heartbreak, I look forward to that with you, because it is a beautiful thing, but it can be very weird. Yeah, you can just look at these. When my husband passed away, I felt a lot of relief. He was suffering. My family was suffering. I was splitting time between hospice and at home with my kids. My kids didn't understand why I was there, because he was just sleeping. Why couldn't I be home with them? And like feeling guilty regardless of where I was at. And then, feeling guilt because I felt relieved. There's so many things up here that we can experience at the same time. For me, I'm a Christian. If you go to my Facebook page, you can hear a lot about that specific walk. But I had a lot of faith that my husband would be saved. I did not even question it. But then I was hearing doubt. I was hearing every week, he's not gonna live. He's not gonna live. And I was like, no, he's gonna live. And I'm hearing these negative things. He's not gonna make it. And yeah, he is. So we have these things. So when you experience these things, it's weird, but you know what they are, and you can fully embrace both sides of it. especially if you're getting some kind of positive feeling, because when we're grieving, it's like, man, give me everything that you have that might be somewhat positive because I could use it. Support is really important. It goes back kind of to like having a friend, having somebody who's went through the same thing as you there to listen to you. I'm sure there's a ton of science to back why it's important, but the most important thing is it makes you feel better. And that's what we're after. It's what we're chasing, is to feel better, because living in this heavy grief is not fun. It's misery. It's like the best way I could describe it when I was in the depths of it was like being in a dark black hole and not even seeing a light to have any direction. It was just like complete darkness. And having a friend, I feel like, elevates you just a little bit. You can find this through your church community, through coaching, through friendships. Grief groups are great if you get in the right ones. I was offered a lot of grief groups when my husband died. Everybody thought I should go to one. And I was like, no thanks. Like, I'm good, because the thought of carrying the heaviness of my grief and then sitting and listening to other people's sadness was a big no for me. And that's what a lot of grief groups was people sitting in a circle crying and talking about how sad they are, and that just felt like too much for me. And so I didn't go, but there are some really great groups out there as well. Some people think that, let me rephrase that. Some people feel like they are honoring their loved one by being stuck in their grief. They died, so I'm just going to be miserable the rest of my life, because that's somehow like honoring them. And I think that's one of the saddest things you can do. It doesn't matter what religious preference you have. I think that if any of our loved ones were looking down on us and wanted to see something, what would they want to see? You being happy, you having a life, you enjoying it. How sad for them to be like, oh, the loss of my life caused the loss of yours. You know what I'm saying? Like, the best way we can honor them is by doing things positive. And I think the biggest way we can honor somebody is by living a life fully and living it well, and not just being like, I'm committed to being miserable the rest of my life because I lost somebody really important. So here's some examples of things people do. My friend and I, this widow, we just had coffee at Arcega's. My husband's birthday is coming up in a couple days, and her husband's death anniversary is in a couple days. And we were talking about how some people like to celebrate the birthdays. Like, we're going to celebrate his birthday, we're going to eat his favorite foods, we're going to do that, this and that. And I'm just like, that sounds like pure misery to me. Like, I would sit there and just cry the whole time. Like, why would I do that? A couple of her kids want to do that. And so we're all so different. And that's why I say, like, I'm not an expert coming up here to tell you everything you need to do. But here's some examples. And some of this might stick. Some of it might be like, oh, I want to do that. I was really close to my grandma, and so there's certain flowers that make me feel more connected to her. Planting those or just admiring those make me feel connected. But these are positive ways to honor them. You prolonging and making your grief as miserable as possible is not honoring your loved one. So, like I said, I wanted to allow some time for questions at the end. So what I do is the grief recovery method. And this program was written by a dad who lost his child. And so he was just not finding the resources he needed. He was not finding the support he needed. And he was at the point where he was considering taking his life because he didn't, it just kind of like that same feeling that I know a lot of us have probably had, just like, why be here? And so, in a last-ditch effort to basically save his life, he created a program for himself where he could heal and feel better. And so since then, this has gone worldwide, and it's now evidence-based, which means that they have done, the university has done studies that has said, if you do these things, then you will feel better. Okay? And again, that's our goal, is to feel better. Nobody in here is trying to become like a world-renowned grief speaker. Like, we just want to get better. And so that's what this program does. You can go through this program one-on-one, or you can go through it in a group. It's just your preference on how you do it. For me, I was a one-on-one person. I don't have time to sit in a group. It's like I don't want to hear other people's stuff, you know. But a lot of people love the group because now I have a connection with other people. And people oftentimes in these groups leave as like lifelong friends now because they've bonded over the most intimate and hurtful situation of their life. And so I offer both of these things to my clients. And this is something new that I'm doing. Typically, my group sessions are 8 weeks and they're 2 hours, and I do them in the evenings. But what I'm finding is that people are busy in the evenings. And so I'm starting a lunch break one. So you come twice a week during your lunch break, and within 8 weeks, we're finished. And so I do want to invite you guys to explore that. It's a great program. I went through it myself. I did the intensive day and a half, and I don't recommend that. But it will make you feel better and get you on a path towards healing. This is my personal information. I offer everybody a free 30-minute talk to me, let's figure this out. It's like, I may not be the right fit for you. You may not be the right fit for me, but I have enough awareness of grief to be able to say, this sounds like a good path forward for you as I listen to you and help you figure stuff out and get you on the right path. It could be a group, it could be one-on-one, it could be rehab, hopefully not. But it could be something other than me, and it could be therapy. So now you have my number. You guys, you can text me. I'll leave that up there. You can text me if you want to have that free consultation, or if you want to be in one of the groups. And there's also a flyer in the back where you can sign up for that group. So with that, what questions do you guys have? Comments, anything that came up that you would like to talk about? We have about 10 minutes.
What location is the...
Online.
Oh, everything's virtual online? So you don't meet at a physical location?
No, if somebody had a group of people in Fayetteville, and I would come, yeah, but typically people don't want to do that. They want to be online. Because you can get in your sweatpants and have your drink, and, you know, that's what people prefer.
My question is similar, but on the deeper dive, is that all online?
Yeah, so if you, I'm in the process of switching over. I just joined a new group, but if you'll just text me, I can tell you everything. But basically the next step would be that 30-minute conversation where we decide specifically what is best for you. I also have books in the back. Reading is great. I think you should read, but what we really need to do is change daily life stuff. And so I have books in the back. They're $10 each. I just got them off Amazon, so if you want to take one of mine, I'll just replace it. But you can start there, but I would love to talk to you guys over Zoom or in person and make a plan for what is best specifically for you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and then I just have one follow-up. So is this just specific to this area, like Northwest Arkansas, or do you have resources for other places?
I work online, so I work, even other countries. So, yeah, it's not limited to anybody. I do max each group at 12 people, though. It's what we do in those groups is there'll be 12 people. And so when I'm doing the instruction, the teaching, the education, we're in a group of 12. But then once it comes to sharing, because you do share, because like I said, it's important to talk about it and get these, thoughts and feelings out. When it comes to that, I put you in groups of 3. And then you're with those same 2 people all throughout the stuff.
So that 8 weeks of 2 meetings a week, how much is that?
It's $5.97. And then I email you everything. The book is $10 on Amazon, and then there's a folder in the back that says the NWA Grief Specialist at the top. It has all the homework in it, And so I would email that to you, and so you would have it to go through.
I was sort of like you when I lost my mom in 21. I was like, give me the path to complete this project.
Yeah.
At a time when my brain wasn't working right, because your brain isn't working right, when you're deeply suffering. So I just wanted to share some of my own resources. Circle of Life Hospice offers a grief support group. I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks, and it costs nothing, and it was really helpful for me. Also, like you, I sort of didn't know, I wasn't ideating suicide, but I felt like I didn't know how to move forward. And so I went to Springwoods Behavioral Health. My insurance did cover it, and I went in and did an outpatient program. So I was there from 9 to 3 for 2 weeks. I went in thinking, look how far, just shame, like felt bad that I was like in a mental institution. And then after the 2 weeks, I was begging them to stay for another 2 weeks, or from 9 to 12, because no one had taught me emotions, and no one had taught me how to process emotions. And the big thing that I'm trying to share with people now is that there is no shame in it. I'm proud of myself now. I now see all of these unhealed people traveling around me that don't know how to name emotions, and I'm like, we all need to go to Springwoods. So I feel very strongly about, I was so lost, and so I just feel very strongly about telling people what helped me, and that there's nothing wrong with it, and in fact it's a show of strength that I was able to do that. So don't ever let it make you feel like you're less than. And there was something else I was going to say, but now I'm not thinking what it was. So I'll put a pin in that, but that's all that I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it is in probably everything you were feeling and thinking and all those things, probably everybody in this room has felt. And I'm glad that you got the help that you needed, because I think that's the saddest thing is when we move through this and don't get what we need, and then we just waste years of our life and maybe lose friendships and stuff over it. And so want to avoid that. Anything else? Questions, comments?
If we wanted to, this was online, you said on Facebook, if we wanted to, is it possible to see this session?
To see this session? Yeah, it's going to be on the Fayetteville Public Library.
Okay.
Yeah, and please send it to people. People need encouragement to do something to feel better. And so you definitely don't want to be that annoying person that's like, hey, couldn't help but notice you're struggling. Here's but a gentle, this might help, could be really helpful to people and encouraging people in their grief. And again, the time thing, a lot of people are like, oh, he died 5 years ago, or it's been 6 years since that happened. For a lot of people, it feels like it was yesterday. And so continue, for the people that are in your life, like you guys are obviously doing something about your grief, but just keep encouraging and loving the people that are really struggling and not able to take this step. Because for you guys and for me, it was very easy to move forward, because I was like, this really, really is really terrible. I didn't want to be there, but some people are like, this is terrible, I don't know what to do. So, yeah. The library has put out books back there that you can check out. I have read none of them. There was one, though, I had thought about reading at some point. I can't tell which one it was. But anyways, books are great. But remember that everything is just somebody else's opinion and somebody else's idea on things. This is your journey. And I think after today, you should know exactly what you need to do to take a step in the right direction. So thank you. You guys were a lovely audience. I appreciate you showing up for yourself today. If you have any questions, just come up and see me. Oh, thank you. And I broke this, guys. I'll just put it back. This is what the last person did. They just made it look like it was fixed. They're like, this this next person's gonna really mess up. Oh, I might be able to kick it in there.